Mike showed up just before Christmas. He was so strung out on crack it was hardly possible to talk to him. His sallow complexion mirrored the skull so graphically depicted on his black T-shirt. A man of 59 or 60 wearing a T-shirt you'd think a teen might put on to shock his parents. He was in our waiting room with his Asian wife. She was a worried-looking woman, holding a beautiful young baby girl. I first briefly talked with both Mike and his wife, and then Mike alone. After a 10-minute chat, I sent him off to sober up. There's no sense trying to get any level of commitment from someone who's still high. Mike was using daily, and had done so for as long as he could remember. Like most long-term crack users, Mike had that dusky skin tone with a touch of greyness that gives them a dirty look. His eyes were a little sunken, and he looked exhausted. His navy blue BMW 7 Series was immaculate, and he was so dilapidated he looked like he had failed the air care test all on his own. Not the BMW poster child. Mike stayed in Vancouver that night with a friend, and I made arrangements to have him check into a local hotel, if he showed up the following day. There's always a question about how serious a client is until he puts his money on the table and commits. If he's doing it for his wife, or because he thinks he should, the chances are he's not sufficiently invested. Getting beyond an addiction is a serious business and probably the toughest thing he'd ever have to do. All those horror stories about how hard it is are true. When he came back the following day, Mike looked even worse. Crack leaves a gunmetal grey tinge on the skin. There's a darkness to the eyes that gives a haunted look to the addict. And they're all addicts when it comes to crack. No one flirts with it. No one plays around. You either don't use it, or you're an addict. There is no halfway. We've sorted out a lot of Mikes. The physiological side is not too complicated. If it looks more than we can handle, the hospital is a 5-minute walk. Most of the crack addicts that find their way to me are out of the ordinary. They're not kids for a start. They're typically between 30 and 50. Many are professionals, or at least they were. Then one night they go out and do something stupid. It may be preceded by a fight with the wife, or a bad day at work, or a binge on alcohol that goes very, very badly wrong. And that's when they first try crack. Things can only go downhill from there. It really doesn't matter who they are, bankers, lawyers or cops, they all end up in trouble. At first they'll play. It's only a type of coke, right? Then they fall into regular use. After all, it's easy. You can buy crack for a few bucks. A $5 here or there. Maybe they'll do $50 or $100 now and then, until it's every day. At some point they decide to stop. Yes, I'll stop and then it's over. I mean, look, okay, I've spent all this money, right? I'll just stop. Only they don't stop, because it isn't a choice anymore. It's as though they're on ice and sliding downhill. There's no choice or motivator, it's just happening. And they try not to do that anymore, and maybe for a few days it's okay, until they say, oh, fuck it, I'll just do one more hit. But it's not just one more. It never is. As they realize this is going to be tougher than they thought, they get a little scared and reach out for help. All right, I'll get some help. That's when they start finding out that many of the places they thought they could turn don't actually want an addict that's still in their addiction. It seems hopelessly stupid that a treatment centre will say, we can't take you if you're still using. If they'd stopped, they wouldn't need the treatment, right? Well, actually, no. They're going to need a whole lot of treatment, before, during, and after using. Sometimes that's the first time they'll call us. They hear how much we charge, and then they think about it and say that they'll get back to us. That's when we often see a little resistance cut in. It seems like an expensive exercise for some people, and they resent that they'll have to use money, which in the past has been for their addiction. They feel a sense of despair about getting out of the addiction, and as a result they rebel. There's a strong urge to kick back. you've probably already guessed how a user rebels. They go out and use more. That's when we see a second stage. This is when they really wake up to the fact that they're still using, they want out, but they're beginning to realize this is not going to be easy. It may not even be possible. That's when fear kicks in. If they still have family, there's always a lot going on by now. Perhaps the wife or husband has gone with the kids. Maybe that nice job has disappeared. If they reach out to us a second time, it's because they don't care how much it costs. They just want out of this and out for good. We can always tell clients who are reaching out to us when they're at this stage because they realize they're in serious trouble. They begin to realize just how high the stakes really are. Let's be absolutely plain here. We're talking about their lives being lost. Whether they lose them to an overdose or the tormented gradual slide into misery and poverty, their lives will literally be lost. No, there's really reluctance to come into our system when they contact us a second time. They're so terrified they beg us to help. In all likelihood, no one else can. Liz is a film producer. She's fascinated by hypnosis because she's twigged that few people really understand it. It's still in the pioneer stages. Some people think they understand it, but in reality few people really get it. Sure, some doctors can hypnotize people, but so can some guy in a pub. It's how it's used that makes it really interesting. And that's still wide open. Liz gets it. Liz knows that there's still a lot more that we don't know about hypnosis than we do know about it. Liz will talk me out of getting a husband to shoot his wife on stage and suggest that I do a little more work on treating eating disorders. She's my conscience. For the longest time, the medical profession has doubted hypnosis, and as a result, there's been comparatively little research into it. This goes back to the early days when various doctors at first experimented, then saw some potential, and ended up royally pissing off the medical establishment. From that time forward, hypnosis has been a dirty word for the medical profession. The fact that they don't have a monopoly of it also upsets the apple cart. The truth is, anyone can hypnotize virtually anyone. All one needs to know is how. To be good at it, now that's a different matter. That takes a lot of practice. Anyway, Liz is one of those people who can look at something and say, there's more to this than meets the eye, and approach it with a degree of objectivity that someone as close to it as I am obviously lacks. I get excited by it. I love the fact that I can hypnotize someone to believe the unbelievable. Yes, I love that power. So forget about objectivity. I am a total hypno junkie.